Lately, a lot of people have been asking me what build I use to melt people away whenever I'm playing solo in the Dark Zone. And although it really is just a modified version of my solo player build guide that I uploaded a few days ago, I figured that today I'd go a little more in depth about the smaller bonuses that help out to make that huge difference. So let's go. To start off with the attribute points, you can see that I'm kind of a glass cannon right now. I've put roughly 3,400 points into my firearms, 1,500 points into the stamina, and 1,000 into the skill power. Looking at my gear, my holster is kind of a jack of all trades. It has a really high boost in both firearms and stamina, and it also has some decent electronics. On top of that, it also gives you extra armor, so it pretty much does everything. But looking at the other armor, it's not that special. I'm actually still using a purple armor chest piece simply because this one gives me decent stamina, a lot of armor, and also another 2.3k health. It kind of prevents me from being that complete glass cannon, and without this my health would have probably been sitting around 30k, which is just way too low for any Dark Zone PvP encounters in my opinion. My other gear is also not that special. I spec'd into the firearms for all of them, but for this build you kind of want to boost your critical hit chance and your critical hit damage as well. And to be honest, both of those could be a lot higher with my current character. The only thing that I could say that I'm kind of happy about right now are maybe the gloves. They have 226 extra SMG damage, a 5.5% increased critical hit chance, and you get 10% health for every kill. But even the gloves are still level 30, and the firearms is quite on the low side of things. Basically, when you're building your character, you want to look out for critical hit chance and critical hit damage if you're going to do this build. Now, just like with my other solo player build, my primary weapon is an SMG. In this case, it is the Vector 45 ACP. The reason I choose this weapon over another SMG is because this weapon has quite a high rate of fire and it deals out a little more damage than most of the other SMGs. The way I got this weapon is through a blueprint that I bought at the Phoenix Credits vendor in the base of operations. I mean, I crafted it a few times and I think I got lucky with the talents after the 4th time. So let's talk about those talents. The first one is accurate and it increases my accuracy by 46%. I feel like this is a really underrated talent. Most people would just go for more critical hit damage and all that stuff, but more accuracy on my weapon basically makes it so that the weapon has less bullet spread, and thus that is very useful for close to mid-range encounters. For example, people who are running away from you that you otherwise might not have killed. The second talent, however, is what really makes this weapon a strong SMG, and that is that all damage is increased by 13% when closer than 10 meters to the target. You already have the accuracy, so at close range you shouldn't miss a single bullet. You already have the high rate of fire, and with this talent, you also have the extra damage. It is very good for bursting people down. The last talent is okay, I guess. Basically, the weapon has much better handling for 13 seconds after using a skill. It's probably not necessary on an SMG, and it would fit better on an assault rifle or maybe an LMG, but nonetheless, when I go for a kill, I usually use the pulse and then I fire, so it's not like this talent isn't doing anything. Taking a look at the mods on my weapon, I'm basically prioritizing the same things. My muzzle has more accuracy and crit damage, I got a lot of stability on my grip, and for my magazine I have an increased magazine size. Now I think for the Vector this is really a necessity. One of the biggest flaws is probably the fact that it comes with a 20 round magazine, and with its high rate of fire, you'll be reloading more than actually shooting. A higher mag size still really doesn't solve the issue completely, but at least it helps out a bit. For the scope I actually have some sort of high powered scope, which I also got from a blueprint. This might look kind of weird initially, why I use a high powered scope on an SMG, but when you see that the scope has a 7.5 critical hit chance and 20.5% extra headshot damage, you will see why I took it. The scope is meant for snipers, but I feel like with the increased accuracy I can land headshots just fine. And more often than not, this will actually increase my damage even more. I don't actually use the scope to zoom though, that would be kind of weird, I agree. My second weapon makes up for everything that the SMG cannot do, and that is engaging at longer distances. I'm currently equipped with a purple SOCOM MA1, which again has the accuracy talent enabled, but if you prefer another sniper or have a better one, that is completely up to you. The mods again follow the same policy. I'm maxing out accuracy, stability, crit chance and headshot damage. Now I don't really ever use my pistol, I feel like pistols in this game are just not strong enough, so I'm not gonna go into that, you can just use whatever you want. Now for skills I use the pulse with the damage bonus, which again really pushes that crit damage and crit chance build. And for my second skill I use the heal with the extra damage buff and the extra damage resistance. The damage buff is pretty significant, it adds about 15% extra damage to everything. And considering that you usually use this when you're just about to jump into a fight, this can really help you out as well. For my ulti, I just cannot go without the survivor link. There is nothing else in this game that can save your life like the survivor link, and 80% damage reduction plus 30% movement speed is just so overpowered right now. I can literally walk into 4 enemies, realize that I made a mistake, activate the skill, and then run away and just don't die for a whole 15 seconds. Now let's hop over to the talents. The first one that I use is Critical Save, which increases my damage resistance when using a medkit at low health. I've done some testing with this, and you are considered quote-unquote low health when your last health segment is not fully healed. So if you're anywhere below 1/3 of your health, you should pop it, and not earlier. Second up, I use Combat Medic, which heals group members and things such as skills within a radius of 20 meters by 40%. And you might think right now that this is a really weird choice, especially considering that I'm playing alone. This build is for players that play alone. But the thing with this talent is that you also get the 40% bonus yourself on top of the healing that the medkit would already do. So if you activate this medkit at a low health, you are instantly back to full health. And because you also took Critical Save, you will still have that damage resistance. And you will now start to see how these two talents have a very powerful synergy, but only if you can pop your medkits at the right time. A little bit too early and you will not benefit from either of the effects. A little bit too late and you will die. For my next talent, I went with On the Move, which reduces incoming damage by 30% for 10 seconds after killing a target while moving. I already talked about this before, but generally when playing with the SMG, you will be moving around, walking left and right while shooting, trying to dodge the bullets from the opponents, and thus this talent is very powerful with the SMG. Last up, I went with One is None, which gives you a 50% chance of not consuming the bullet if you land a headshot. For me, the difference that I usually get is around 5 to 8 bullets per magazine, and I think that is definitely worth it. I have to say that this is probably not the best talent on the list, but it's strong in combination with the accuracy and stability mods because you will be landing headshots more consistently. Now before I go, I want to mention one last thing that I found out while using this build a couple of days ago, and that has to do with one of the talents that you can get on the mask. It is called Rehabilitated. Basically, this talent regenerates 2% of your health every second if you are under the effect of any sort of crowd control, like for example fire, disorientated, blinded, and so on. But this talent is currently bugged, and once it is activated, it doesn't ever stop healing. So basically, every time that you want to enter a fight, you can basically flash or stun or disrupt yourself beforehand, and then from that moment on, you will keep healing yourself every second for 2%. You can see that right here, I'm constantly taking damage from these enemies, but I will just keep healing myself up without doing anything. What makes this even stronger is that the game thinks that you used a medkit. So if you fall below that 1/3 of your health, the 40% damage reduction talent will also activate. So basically, you have a permanent 40% damage reduction if you're close to dying, and an endless self-heal. And if things get really ugly, you can use a medkit yourself to instantly heal you back up. In a 1v1 scenario, it's pretty hard to die with this. You have the damage, you can take the damage, and you have more healing than a dedicated healer can provide. The only question that is now left is, can you outplay all the other players in the Dark Zone? Because you might be strong, but you're far from immortal, and if 2 or 3 people are working together, they will still kill you if you play it wrong. Most people right now are not expecting you to go rogue, so you can really pick your fights. Make sure you pick the right ones. And that is pretty much my solo player Dark Zone build. As always, I really hope you enjoyed, I really hope it helped, and I will see you guys later. Or like they say in the Netherlands, zie je later!